Week 8 trades you need to make. Once again, we got tons, and I mean tons, of incredible questions from the community. So glad you're enjoying this on a weekly basis. As always, let us know down in the comments that you do, and obviously, at the same time, evaluate each other's offers and trades. So, Faraz, since we have nothing to begin with at the top, why don't we just jump into it? And this is from Rabbits.
I am dead last in points against, and I just lost Justin Fields. And I'm wondering, should I do Puka and Bo Nix for Quinshon, Judkins, and Drake London? My buddy's 2-5. He needs to win right now. And that trade theoretically favors me, but like Bo Nix is no Jackson Dart. He's no Drake May, you know? He's got Jalen Hurts, but I'm just not sold on Bo Nix. I'd rather just go buy Jackson Dart or go buy Danny Dimes on the side and then tell my buddy, like, hey, Puka and Omarion Hampton for Judkins in London. Now, that might be a stretch. Might I add Laporta or Kraft? Maybe, but that's another thing. Should I sell Kraft? He's my tight end 1. He is safer than other tight end plays, but he definitely does not contribute much knowing how volatile that passing offense is. So what do you guys think?
To boil that down, Faraz, which side are you on? Giving away Drake London and Quinshon Judkins and getting Puka Nacua and Bo Nix?
I'm doing this trade. Hell yeah, I'm doing this trade. Unfortunately, Drake London and Judkins are going to a roster where they will go to die this season because the roster you're potentially trading them to is not good. But who cares about Bo Nix, man? Like, seriously. Like, you're getting Puka. You're getting one of the highest floors and ceilings in all of fantasy football. So, I'm worried a little bit about Judkins' negative game script this week, and then he has a bye. You also get Bo Nix right before he goes up against Dallas. He also has 3 competitive games in the fantasy playoffs, right? Against Green Bay, Jacksonville, and the Chiefs. So there's a little bit of a ceiling there, but it's a long season. You also mentioned Omarion Hampton instead of Nix. Like, that might be a little tough, like, to pull off. But, if it seems like your league mate really is trying to get some wins right now. I try to see if I can make that happen. Then you figure out a different way to get a quarterback. But yes, like, if you can make that Hampton trade like happen, like, I would definitely try and do that. But if not, I wouldn't overthink the Bo Nix thing, to be honest with you.
I think I'm slightly more skeptical than you. And by the way, we got a bunch of Quinshon Judkins questions, so I wanted to kind of package them at the top of the show. First of all, his roster is not very good. I understand he's 5-2, but it's a bit of a mess here. Like you said, it's Justin Fields at quarterback, and that's it. Like, why isn't there another quarterback on this roster when you could have picked up Jackson Dart earlier in the season, when you could have picked up Daniel Jones earlier in the season? That's why we make those moves, because now you're going to have to trade for them. I've seen some Puka skeptics out there, and you are not one of them, and I am with you. Let's think back to last year, which was a different injury. But for us, when he came back, he was the wide receiver 4 in points per game. I mean, he's still going to be a top 4, top 5 option the rest of the way. So with that said, I don't know if I would make this move, because if he did it, sure, he would have Amon-Ra, St. Brown, and Puka Nacua, 2 top 4 wide receivers the rest of the way. But then he's clearly giving up to me his running back 1, and then he's clearly giving up his wide receiver 3 on a team that you could potentially start 4 wide receivers on, and he doesn't really have a second running back to fill in. So I totally get where you're coming from. Getting the starter, getting the top end talent, getting the superstar. But at the same time, he is like totally taking out whatever depth he has on this roster, which I actually kind of think he did in his early draft part of the calendar.
Yeah, I hear that, and I totally understand where you're coming from. If it sounds to me like he has a quarterback problem, and it's obviously, that is the case looking at the roster. So why not try to solve that problem without
by trading a tight end?
Yeah, you have one of your tight ends. You have Laporta. Maybe you combine Laporta with one of your other lesser pieces to go get a quarterback instead of, doing this massive, blockbuster type of trade just to kind of get an upgrade over Justin Fields.
So obviously his season went awry because he drafted Malik Neighbors, and then Malik Neighbors is on IR and won't play the rest of the season. What I would do is, instead of going Judkins and Drake London, I would go with maybe Sam Laporta and Tedero McMillan and see if that gets me both a starter at wide receiver and then also a quarterback attached to it, because I don't really want to get rid of Quinshon Judkins, even though I'm totally understanding with you, and we'll get into it as we go along about the game script situations. And then with Drake London, like really these last 3 games, they finally realized that they once again can use him out of the slot, even though this past one was just miserable play from the quarterback position. So like you would be giving up a top 12 wide receiver plus a top 12 running back for a top 4 wide receiver. And then I wouldn't even call Bo Nix a starting, top 8 quarterback right now in fantasy football. I would much rather go and get the Jackson Darts or the Daniel Joneses of the world. Do you agree with that part?
100%. I think this is a great time to sell Bo Nix if you have him. And I would 100% agree. Go get those other guys. Daniel Jones, that tier of actual, mid to low end QB1s. I don't even think Bo Nix is a low end QB1 right now. He's right outside my top 12 rest of the season.
All right, boys, I got a juicy one for you today. So 14-man league, half PPR. I'm currently good at wide receiver, but I'm still hurting at running back, specifically my RB2 spot. Right now it's Bill, and we all love Bill, but I just feel like the volume still really isn't there. It's been getting better, but still, he doesn't catch passes, and he's, sharing work still with Jeremy McNichols and getting goal line vultured by Chris Rodriguez. So I just want to upgrade my RB2 spot. So the trade would be I give away Drake London and Bill, and in return, I get Quinshon Judkins. Now, feels like a little bit of an overpay at first, but I feel like Judkins is a legit workhorse now. I know he's on the Browns, not a great team, but he's still just such a beast and has so much talent. I'm sure Bill will have better days, and London's amazing, but, we've seen the with and without Mooney splits, and, Bill's still splitting kind of in a 3-way committee. So, yeah, let me know what you think. Thanks for taking my question. Josh, I love you.
Faraz, is this an overpay?
Josh, he loves you. I do like I do like the premise of this trade because when I look at your roster, you're basically sitting Brian Thomas Jr., right? He's on your bench. If you're starting CD, JSN as your wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, then you have Drake London and Rashee Rice as your 2 flex players. So in that sense, like I get where you're trying to go here.
But isn't that good enough? Like not to cut you off.
Yeah.
Yeah. To me, at times, when we play fantasy football, and at least when we get to this portion of the calendar, we want our fantasy roster to be totally balanced and have tremendous starters at every spot. Zufa, I'm looking at your roster, buddy, and you have CeeDee Lamb, Rashee Rice, JSN, who's on a bye this week, and then also Drake London. Why not just roll with 4 top 12 wide receivers the rest of the way, along with having Chris McCaffrey as your running back 1, and just understand in your mind, hey, I'm going to give up some points here at the running back 2 spot. I don't want to do anything to this roster moving forward.
And like you said, Zufa, like Bill's going to have better days. I'm also not really buying into like the whole London Mooney split thing. It's a small sample. Like we know who the alpha is over there. He still had 10 targets this past week. Mooney only had 5. So I think over a larger sample, like we won't be blinded by like, oh no, Mooney's playing. And like I said, like Judkins' negative game script this week, then a bye. And then like if you look at the playoffs, Chicago, Buffalo, Pittsburgh, like good matchups, but does game script get away from them, right? That's and then reports about Shedeur Sanders starting in the last few games. How will that affect him, right? Like it's a bad team. Sometimes you just want to stay away. And where is Bill by that point, right? We're right. Jane Daniels in full force, like when he's healthy and they could be rolling, trying to get into the playoffs. So yeah, I think I'm on the same side. I'm leaning no here. Really, and you know what? Like, listen, if you really wanted to do this trade, like, why not go London 1-for-1 for like a really good running back, a really solid RB1? I kind of feel like throwing Bill on top of that for Judkins isn't necessary.
You have 5 of the best fantasy assets in fantasy football. Again, you probably, to me, are one of the favorites in your entire league. And if you really do want to make a trade, which again, the 3rd time you're appearing on this episode, you probably do want to make another trade. Brian Thomas Jr., you are never starting him with the 4 wide receivers that you have at this point, So that to me is another play and another lever that you could pull if you really do want to make a move here. But like, I'm okay with Bill as a running back 2 in the lowest point of my roster, based on where you're at right now. I really like Judkins. He has looked fantastic as an individual runner. I mean, the play that he had for his 46-yard touchdown run, where he meets the safety and then breaks that tackle and accelerates from the rest of the Miami Dolphins defense and runs away from them, is fantastic. In games they are favored in, he's going to see a ton of volume like he did against the Miami Dolphins. But like Faraz mentioned, I do wonder if Dylan Gabriel or when Shedeur Sanders is out there, if we're going to get the same Kevin Stefanski of, oh, we're down 17 points in the fourth quarter, I'm still going to give Quinshon Judkins 6 carries. I think we're kind of done with that aspect, and they want then the rookie quarterbacks to drop back 50, 55 times and just throw the football. So yeah, tough game for him this week. Like you said, against the Patriots, then they're on a bye and they get the Jets, which they might be favored, but that's also a really strong run defense. So I really appreciate the individual talent of Quinshon Judkins, just not giving up what you're offering here.
Fellas, we know this Saturday is the last time ahead of every single one of your Sundays, Mondays, Thursdays are accounted for. So go and do something special for your significant other before every other weekend is accounted for. This is your last opportunity to do it. And if you're fully out of ideas, I'll direct you to the SeatGeek app because it tells you tons of events in your area. For me, I can look at this and see Breaking Benjamin concert in my area. Man, that song and the Halo 2 soundtrack, I think it was like Blow Me Away. Magnificent stuff. Or Chevelle. Look, maybe we got some real heavy metal couples out there. Chevelle the Red was an anthem in varsity football for me in the locker room. And of course, I have a code for you guys. You can use code FANTASY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets at SeatGeek. That is 10% off any tickets, whether you're a new customer or old, with promo code FANTASY10. Make sure you click the link in the description to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. Thank you, SeatGeek. As always, if you guys want to get your questions in, you can drop them in the Underdog Discord. That link is down below, but also on Faraz's page, Upper Hand Fantasy, over on Instagram. Go and support him. And that's where we get this question from Parker.
So I got Judkins, but, I'm scared of that offense. I don't like having the Browns, especially a running back. So I can do Judkins for Jake Ferguson, like right now. I'm pretty weak at tight end. I got Zach Ertz, I had Juwan Johnson, and it's just not looking good. My team is overall really solid. I got Bucky coming back, and then Tyler Warren with DeAndre Swift. So I'm wondering, should I trade Judkins for Ferguson? Or I've been trying to get Derrick Henry for Judkins, but the manager doesn't really want to do that one. So just wondering your thoughts on that. Thanks.
Faraz, the rare running back for tight end deal, would you make it here?
No, I don't think so. I would like to know who the potential RB2 would be if you were to make this deal. But I just feel like you can get more, man. You look at Ferguson, you really look deep into it. He had 6 touchdowns over the last 4 weeks. 49 or less receiving yards over that span. It feels like we're kind of playing with fire here. If you were to make this move, it's almost like you make the move and then all of a sudden it's like no touchdowns for the next 5 weeks. With CD back and George Pickens there. But I think Judkins is just a better asset here. Now, you did mention Derrick Henry. Now, yes. I'd love to move Judkins for Henry, even if I gotta, maybe sprinkle in a little bit more to go do it. It's literally the opposite situation, right? The early down grinder for one of the best offenses in the league versus one of the worst. So
great point.
I don't, but also, with all that said, I don't think I can make this move for Ferguson.
Just like last week, Derrick Henry's one of the targets that I want people to go out there and make offers for this week. He still has a run of 10 or more yards on 13.6% of his attempts this year, which ranks 7th of 37 running backs with 50 or more runs this season. And then if we do look at, sample sizes with certain players on the field, on his 44 runs with both Lamar Jackson and Ronnie Stanley on the field this year, he's averaging 6 yards per carry. And this is a total reset here for this Baltimore Ravens team. We talked about it last week, and hopefully you got your offers in, but this is the new season, and they're going to be favored in a whole bunch of games. They get a whole bunch of people back, both on offense and on defense. So if you can do Judkins for Derrick Henry, 100%, but I am not getting rid of the volume and the touchdown equity that Quinshon Judkins has in games that, they might score 16, 18, 20 points in for a tight end here. I just can't do it.
Hey, I'm in a half PPR keeper league, and pretty stacked at wide receiver. I've got George Pickens, Nico Collins, Emeka Egbuka, Ted McMillan, and Juwan Jennings. But my running backs are Quinshon Judkins and Ashton Jeanty, with Ken Walker been riding the bench for me. Just looking for some juice on my squad. Realistic trade candidates for me. One guy's got James Cook. I think he's a little bit unhappy with in the last couple of weeks. And another guy's got Saquon Barkley and Breece Hall and Jordan Mason to go alongside his Josh Jacobs. I don't expect him to give up Jacobs, but maybe one of those other guys, thinking I could package a receiver and a running back. Both of those teams, really need receivers, and I don't think they would want to give up the depth at running back. So thinking Ken Walker plus a receiver. But let me know what you think. Who should I go for, and what should I give up?
Faraz, when I look at his roster, there are about 4 untouchables that I would put on. Okay, Emeka Egbuka, George Pickens, George Kittle, and then I'd probably throw Nico Collins on there too. The rest, I would, be interested in potentially adding up, valuing up in a trade. What about you? Are any of the running backs that he mentioned in James Cook, Saquon Barkley, Breece Hall, or Jordan Mason worth targeting here?
Yeah, I think my ears particularly, perked up when he said James Cook.
Same.
And when James Cook manager is annoyed, I am trying to swoop in. Like just like we talked about the Ravens bouncing back, right? With Lamar out of the bye. I think the Bills also bounce back after the bye, right? So you mentioned the untouchables, right? Kenneth Walker, though, sitting on the bench. Ted McMillan, you mentioned earlier from another team. I feel like at this point, willing to move Ted McMillan. Kenneth Walker and Ted McMillan, I don't know if that's enough, right? Like if it was me, it probably won't be, but I'm not the one annoyed, with my James Cook. So, I'd be looking at that potentially maybe as a starting point. Also, like, I don't know, man, maybe Jeanty straight up for James Cook. Like maybe something like that can happen just to get some fresh running backs. Like, and if you need to add something else on, maybe Juwan Jennings on top of that. That's kind of where I'm looking, to see if we can make some sort of package to go get James Cook. And I'm not opposed to reaching for Saquon either. Like if that James Cook one doesn't work out.
Yeah, obviously we have Saquon Barkley against the New York Giants this weekend, and in his first 2 carries the last time they played, they got 31 yards, and I think he had about 27 the rest of the game. So maybe the 31 gets stacked up on in this second time. Yeah, this roster is perfect for me to think of. Hey, I can get rid of these like peripheral pieces to go and get one dude. And with how your wide receivers are, like I do appreciate Teddy McMillan as an individual talent. I think though the fantasy community is a bit more hopeful in him being a big time asset this season than he actually will be, because the Panthers are so run first, they just aren't going to drop back, 40, 45 times a game right now, unless they're getting blown out. And when that's the case, he has to score touchdowns, which, he is being targeted in that area of the field, but it's just not one of those, to me, formulas that's going to work out for the rookie wide receiver that we all love in fantasy football. To me, he's like a better real life player than he is as a fantasy asset. James Cook, totally with you, Faraz. Totally. In that he opened the season as running back 5, running back 2, running back 7, and running back 10. And then after 2 down weeks in the bye, it's like he's the forgotten about big time asset in fantasy football. I understand he's not catching a ton of passes. We also know that can change at any point. And he's also owning everything for that team other than Josh Allen inside the 10-yard line. So to me, James Cook might be the most undervalued player in fantasy football as we enter week 8.
It's very possible. And honestly, man, I don't even care if he's not catching that many passes. He's constantly in scoring position. He is one of the most efficient running backs in football at this point. Like I've conceded at this point with all the touchdown regression, all that kind of stuff. Yep. Like I was that guy, man. I'm not going to lie. But at this point, man, like I give up. I wave the white flag. James Cook is that dude. And he's going to continue to be that guy, man. We just have to view him as one of the guys who is just an exceptional player and is always going to overperform on the opportunity that he's given even over a large sample size.
Yep. Look, you're never going to start Teddy McMillan unless one other person is on a bye, right? Kyler Murray, I don't think anyone wants him in your league. But these are all these assets, like Ken Walker, trade him if you want to. Juwan Jennings, trade him if you want to. Like, go to the person who is rostering James Cook at this moment and say, hey, all these guys not my starting lineup, take as many as you want and give me James Cook, and we're good. I'll pick up and fill out the rest of my roster in free agency on top of it.
Should I trade DeAndre Swift and someone pretty replaceable on my bench? I'm not exactly sure who, but someone I wouldn't mind missing to get Jaylen Warren. I figured I could maybe sell high on DeAndre Swift, especially because he was splitting carries, and Jaylen Warren seems more of a bell cow. But yeah, I'm just trying to upgrade my running back situation.
Josh, Jaylen Warren is first among 37 qualifying running backs in missed tackle rate. He's 5th in after contact rate. And cherry on top, first in yards per route run among 51 qualifying running backs. So he's balling, man. I don't know if you remember, but a couple of years ago, behind Najee Harris, he was one of the most efficient running backs in football, right? And then you're like, oh, let's extrapolate that. If he can become the starter, like it usually never works out that way, right? I remember doing it with Tony Pollard, in the past. It hasn't really worked out. He also had that injury, but Warren was also a little bit banged up last year. Now, I think moving forward, I do have both of these running backs pretty close in my rest of season rankings. Could be a little bit of a lateral move here, but I have a couple thoughts. I think it's pretty clear at this point that the Steelers want Jaylen Warren clearly in the driver's seat of that backfield. They moved him into the driver's seat in week 3. He got hurt, and then they slowly moved him back into the driver's seat last week. And he's balling, dude. Swift, he's also balling since the bye, right? Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to throw this back to you, Josh. Like, Kyle Monanga was pretty involved last week, but they were eating out of a big rushing pie, right? 32 combined carries between the two of them. Now, if the pie is smaller, what do we see, right? Do we see Swift go back to just being the guy, or is he just eating out of a smaller pie alongside Monanga as like a 1A, right? Like, that's really what my question to you is, right? Like, but overall, just to answer the question, I think this is a lateral move. I do think Warren, especially in PPR leagues, gives you a little bit of a higher floor every week, maybe a little bit more consistency. So if that's kind of what you're looking for, I'm okay making this move.
So since you opened with a Jaylen Warren stat, I'll answer with a DeAndre Swift stat. I mean, he's averaged 8.3 yards per rush on runs to the left side since the bye week over these last 2 games. Now, that is notable to me because since the bye week, they've been playing a new left tackle from British Columbia with the last name of Benedette, and he's an athlete out there, man. He's making moves. He's a road grader. He's creating these cavities for DeAndre Swift to work out in space. And then at the same time, like, DeAndre Swift to me is running more physically with more aggression than he has in years. I have never been a DeAndre Swift fan. I think the entire fantasy community is a bit over him as a fantasy asset. And yet again, on the field, he looks the best, and he's had it, in numerous games. So I'm on the DeAndre Swift end of this. Like, I understand actually they and the Steelers are projected for just 21.25 points, but then Chicago gets the Cincinnati Bengals next week, and running through that defense. So I think how Ben Johnson looked at his team in the opening 4 games of the season was, hey, we have bad run blocking and we have a very low success rate rushing attack. So we're just going to throw the football all the time, and our defense wasn't playing well. Since the bye, and sure, it's against the Commanders rushing defense and the Saints rushing defense, they've had success both on defense and rushing the football. This is also, a play caller that has a history of using 2-person backfields, but to tremendous success and with large pies that they take, shares of, as you said. So I want Swift to this. I should have been point blank clear in that, but like you said, it's kind of almost 2 Spider-Man memes pointing at each other a little bit.
Yeah, pretty much. Isn't it kind of funny, though, that Ben Johnson, when he was part of the Lions, he was the OC. They traded away DeAndre Swift, right, with ease. And then he comes to Chicago, and he's like, yep, this is my guy, right? Like, it's really interesting how that ends up working out. I did not see that coming. I'm not going to lie.
The only downside to every Bears fantasy asset that you do have is the fantasy playoff schedule for them, because it goes Green Bay, Cleveland, Green Bay. That's rough. That's about the 2 most impactful defenses when we talk about fantasy matchups.
Up the Villa, go Elon, all of those good things. Need your help. This is my advice right here. I'm in a 12-man, 3-keeper league, half-point PPR. I have built a kind of reputation in the league throughout the years, to kind of be a guy that kind of get over via trades and things like that. So now a lot of people have been making a lot of trades with me this year, but having a piecemeal together. 5-2 right now, second in points. Super thin at wide receiver, and I lost Tyreek Hill, Pearsall's been hurt, Ridley's been hurt, just got Rashid Rice back. So would you do, I need advice on this trade, would you do Isiah Pacheco for DJ Moore or Kenneth Walker for Christian Olave? Any insight would really help. Really appreciate it.
Faraz, do either of those trades get you going a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. Like, I would not do the Isiah Pacheco for DJ Moore one. Like, I'd rather keep Pacheco, because I do see a path for upside there. Like he's been the primary guy over the last couple of weeks. His snaps went all the way up, on the low. It went up to 77% in week 6. And last week he was the clear guy before garbage time and even before Hunt got hurt. But, I would love the primary running back on the Chiefs. And DJ Moore, he hasn't seen a target share over 19% in any game this season. And you also mentioned half PPR, which makes me even less interested in him. But Kenneth Walker for Olave, like I would do that. One is consistently giving you a pretty solid fantasy floor, even in half PPR, and we saw the ceiling last week with the 2 touchdowns, and then the other one is like leaving you just straight up frustrated, like every single week. And like, you can't even watch. If I had Kenneth Walker, like I cannot watch a Seahawks game because like he'll get you down to the 4-yard line and then like he just comes off the field. Right. And that is extremely frustrating. It's probably taken off some time off of your life. So I wouldn't advise that. The only way I think this works, is if Zach Charbonnet ends up getting hurt and the coaches don't seem interested in moving off of the current split. So yeah, I think if that Olave trade is on the table, like I think I would take that.
Yeah, I'm with you. Chris Olave is a top 24 wide receiver rest of season for me, both in half PPR and full PPR. I mean, he's done it this year with low ADOT and high volume, and then also high ADOT, lower volume, downfield passes, those types of things. And where Kellen Moore and how he's calling this offense, they're going to push the pace. They're going to run a whole bunch of plays, and they're not afraid to throw the football when they are down in those. And the Kenneth Walker stuff, like it's his birthday and he can't even get one of 2 goal line touchdowns.
It's so messed up, dude.
Over from a touchdown department when that happens. Coaches love these freaking narratives. It's messed up. He even gets them down there in those scenarios, and he still can't even get a 1-yard score on 3 opportunities.
You know why
it's crazy.
It's messed up too because like we see all of these players when they're facing their former teams, they get extra opportunity, they get goal line targets, they get goal line snaps when they wouldn't have got those snaps if it wasn't, either their birthday or going up against their former team and it was a revenge game. Coaches know these things, but he can't get a goal line carry on his birthday.
Crazy.
It's just, it just makes me really
Especially
mad.
when he converted on 2 of them when Zach Charbonnet was hurt for that game earlier this season. Especially when you look at like 10+ yard rushes, explosive runs for this team, and it's 14 for Kenneth Walker and just 2 for Zach Charbonnet this season. Again, I can throw whatever stat I want to out there. We just understand, and this is what we need to do. Leave sometimes, even though I think other times it actually helps us. But in this case, we need to leave our eyes out the door and just our brains go with what Mike McDonald and Clint Kubiak are doing with this running back room, even if it doesn't make sense all the time. But even me, massive Ken Walker fan, I would be trading him for Chris Olave at this point.
I have Devontae Adams, George Pickens, Rashee Rice, and Nico Collins. And I also have Jake Ferguson and Tyler Warren at tight end. So I have a ton of options for my flex. But my running back 2 is Walker with HN as a running back 1. So I'm trying to trade one of these multiple receivers I have in order to get a running back 2 because Walker's not going to do it for my team. So I've been trying to trade Pickens, and with Pickens, I can get back Jaylen Warren or Bill, but I'd rather have Warren. And then I'd have to give up Rice in order to get someone like Scadaboo or Judkins or Swift. So do you guys think these are good trades? What do you think I should do?
Faraz, isn't there that saying like shoot for the stars and you land on the moon or something like that? I feel like Jack is shooting for like the top of the tree that's the tallest in your backyard, and he's landing like 1 foot ahead. These deals are terrible value that he's projecting.
I'm with you, man. Like you got to get better running backs here, man. Like for Pickens, you can't settle at Jaylen Warren, and for Rashee Rice, you cannot settle at Scadabo. Like I just you can't. These were studs. These were studs, straight up studs that you cannot just give up. Like okay, I'll refrain. I was gonna say some more and just keep piling on, but
no, I can be the mean guy. But for us, he did such a good job though drafting wide receivers, and his league is set up that he can only play 3 of them. That he is kind of screwed in that department. So he has 4 studs at wide receiver. Let's just run through them again. Okay, it's Rashee Rice, Devontae Adams, George Pickens, and Nico Collins. And on any given week, he can only play 3 of them. And so his 2 running backs right now, Devon Achane, Ken Walker, and then other guy on the bench is Kyle Monangai. And that's it. And the other part is he also has 2 top 5 tight ends.
Exactly.
Tyler Warren and Jake Ferguson. So I don't know if I would move any of these wide receivers, even if you can only start 3 of them. What I would do is package one of the tight ends with Ken Walker and try to get a running back there.
So the words out of my mouth, man. That's exactly what I would try to do. And listen, you can even potentially get, like, if somebody is like really against Walker, you can also aim even higher, right? Like aim for the moon, right? And take a tight end, take one of your wide receivers and really aim for the moon. Maybe like a Devontae Adams or someone like that who's on bye right now. And then you can really aim for a solid RB1. And then that way, you know, you get a real player back. Like, would you do one of these top tight ends and Devontae Adams for Scatterbo?
I don't know, man.
It's closer though, right? It's closer.
Devontae Adams right now.
No, I hear you.
Like,
I hear you.
can't do it.
But I think it's closer than the deals that you were trying to make, right? And I understand trying to.
I mean, I am ranking
spot.
James Cook ahead of Cam Scatterbo rest of season. So
yeah, me
maybe
too.
I would do it
100%.
for like James Cook.
Yeah, sure.
Right.
That would be amazing.
Okay. Since you put me in a difficult spot, I'm going to put you in a difficult spot. Okay.
Please do.
If the rest of his league looks at his roster, he's like, no, man, you can't start all these wide receivers. So I'm going to pluck one of them from you. Which of these 4 wide receivers are you most willing to deal between Rashee Rice, Nico Collins, Devontae Adams, and George Pickens?
It would, man. I look at Rashee Rice as like the untouchable of this group,
yes.
right? Like, you know, if it really depends, you know, I think it's really tough to get a really good RB1 for Devontae Adams right now. I understand he had the 2 touchdowns. I think it's easier to potentially, you know, move Nico Collins or George Pickens for a better wide receiver. For a better running back. So I'm okay trading any of those guys, but if I had to choose one to give up, it's probably going to be Nico Collins. Just because, you know, Devontae Adams, he's paired with Matthew Stafford. He's going to be continually targeted on, you know, in those red zone looks. So yeah, I'm with you, man. I'm just a little bit bearish on this Texans passing offense right now.
Yeah, I mean, the Texans to me are most likely of that quartet of teams to maybe only be projected for 21 points on a given week. Whereas, you know, the Cowboys offense, the Chiefs offense, and the Rams offense might be closer to 25, 26, 27, heck, even 28, 29 points. So I don't want to trade Nico, but again, eye test wise, that doesn't look like right for a passing game. And obviously a concussion that he's dealing with right now. So if your league mates have to take a wide receiver from you, it would probably be Nico Collins from us.
Hey, what's up, guys? Your local blacksmith right here. Hey, 12-team PPR league. Some guy just asked for Jacobs and DJ Moore, but he'll give me Jeanty and London. And I kind of need help at wide receiver. I got Gibbs and Bill and Jacobs, obviously, as my running backs. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Is it worth it? Go after Jeanty and London, better receiver, not so good, not as good as a running back. But what do you guys think? Hey, love your stuff.
The blacksmith is back. He loves it. Faraz, I love the little community we are creating with this show. People are watching every single week. We definitely appreciate it. And again, thank you to everyone for sending in your questions. It's so cool that, you know, you put yourself out there doing it. Okay, answer his question here, Faraz. This is your guy.
Yeah, man. I don't know. 28 Bet seems like somebody that I would have a beer with. You know, he just seems like a you know, super chill. Yeah, I kind of feel that way. Yeah, 100%. All right, so you have Jacobs, Gibbs, and Bill.
And Gibbs.
I think, I think I would do this trade. I hate getting rid of Jacobs, but I mean, I look at DJ Moore just as a throw-in, to be honest with you. So turning Jacobs into London and Jeanty is a pretty good return, in my opinion. And this is only because, like, I'm assuming you desperately need a wide receiver. So, you know, you get a top 12 wide receiver in London. You get a top 15 running back rest of season in Jeanty to combine with Jahmyr Gibbs. And hey, like, if Bill ends up improving, you have some more ammo to potentially get even better at RB2, again, using these guys as a trade piece to upgrade. So I'm cool with this move, but only if you desperately need a wide receiver.
I don't think I'm cool with it. I mean, these 2 running backs in Josh Jacobs and Jahmyr Gibbs are sensational, you know? And while you and I really do appreciate Drake London, I can also paint a picture of it not being great the rest of the year. I don't think I can paint a picture where Jahmyr Gibbs falls off and Josh Jacobs falls off, just based on the volume that they get, where they get their volume, and the offenses that they're attached to. And then at the same time, I can also paint a picture of how Ashton Jeanty, it gets even worse for the Las Vegas Raiders here before it gets any better. So I think I'm going to stick with the Jacobs and Gibbs. And, you know, if you want to package Bill and DJ Moore for a slightly lesser wide receiver, if I could do Bill and DJ Moore for, I don't even think you have to trade both of them. Just go and get like Chris Olave of that group. And there's other wide receivers of that inkling, of that styling that you could get. I just don't think you have to give away Jahmyr Gibbs to do it, in my opinion.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. You know, maybe like a Michael Pittman, you know, someone in that like top 24 range, something like that. Because I would imagine that somebody who's in need of a running back would love to have Bill who sees the vision. You got to just make sure whoever you're trading Bill to sees the vision. That's the key.
You know what I want? Yeah. Let's go on to the end here and go with our targets of the week. I already brought up, you know, James Cook, Derrick Henry, some other players. I don't think people realize that dating back to last season, Devontae Smith is flat out outscoring AJ Brown. Okay. It's been a consistent thing. This isn't a one-off. We shouldn't be surprised when it happened just like this past week. And look, when the passing game works, which hopefully they figured out some things in this past week, as we talked about in Stats versus Film, was a bunch of under center passes and a bit of a twist on what they've done before, because then they had 8 dropbacks heading into the week and it was 4 this past week. But Devontae Smith has been outscoring, again, AJ Brown in fantasy football, and just flat out in the field for us. He's looked like the better football player too. So Devontae Smith, I'm sure everyone is aggravated if you drafted him. Meanwhile, he's the wide receiver 6 in points per game over the last 4 weeks with 2 duds in there. And he's going to give you some roller coaster type stuff. But guess what? That's the wide receiver spot. I would make a move here if I was 28 bets to go get Devontae Smith instead of trading away Josh Jacobs to go and get Drake London.
Yeah, I'm totally with that. Listen, and you bring up a great point. You know, these players are going to be volatile. Wide receivers it's just a volatile position. So the fact that Devontae Smith was able to even get you the 4 out of 6 great weeks or whatever it was, I'm perfectly happy with that, because that's not what we were expecting with this offense. You just got to keep him in your lineup. That's the key. I think when we mess up is when we try to figure out like when those big games are going to happen. And there's a good chance you're not going to be able to do it properly. And that's why you're frustrated. Not because if he was in your lineup every week, you would probably be pretty happy.
Are there any buys or sells that you have this week?
I'm looking at a few. Like I think there's a couple of relatively cheap running backs. I think Alvin Kamara is one of them. You know, I don't think that he's going to be this like amazing asset the rest of the way, but I don't think someone like Devin Neal is going to just assume Kendre Miller's workload, right? So if you're looking for like this top 24, like that's where I'm putting Kamara, right? Like top 24. Like I'm not even pushing him into like the top 15. He could be in that conversation, but it's not what I'm expecting from him. It'll be great if he gets there. But I do think he's going to get back to like 70% of the rushing attempts. He's going to get back to 60 to 65% rear route participation. And he's going to be just fine. And I think his floor is going to be a little bit higher just because he's going to be on the field a lot more with Kendre Miller out. So he's a cheap running back that you can go get without necessarily expecting RB1 numbers from him. Another running back that I'm looking to get is Jaylen Warren. Like I don't think he ended up getting the maximum, in terms of output. He could have had way better output last Thursday night. Like he didn't score, but he's getting a lion's share of the rushing work. He's getting a lion's share of the route participation. He is that guy. And I was buying him several weeks ago and then he got hurt. But I think I'm back. I'm just jumping back on the wagon because I think that because of how well he's playing, there's no way they can pull him off the field at this point. As long as he can stay healthy, I think he's a high-end RB2 right now. And this usage that he's getting, as long as he continues to ball and be efficient with that usage and also score some touchdowns, like he has top 12 upside.
All right. That's going to do it. Faraz, great stuff as always. Most importantly, the viewers, the questions. Thank you so much. We appreciate them as well. We'll be back here with the wide receivers and quarterbacks and tight end rankings on Friday and Saturday. And until then, we'll talk to y'all next time. See ya.